Charlie Henson. I'm interviewing Gustave A. Halter with the SV 495th. I appreciate you spending your time with us today. First of all, Gus, I'd like for you to tell me about your family and where you were born and your mom and dad.
Okay. I was born in Scranton, Pennsylvania, May 24th, 1917. My mother's name was Anna Hark. Maiden name was Anna Hark. My father was John, and I went to school in Scranton, and I left school early because of the Depression and things were not good. And at 17, I moved. I went to my grandfather's place in Ronkonkoma, Long Island, and I went in the Civilian Conservation Corps in 1935 and spent 2 years in Huntington, Long Island in the Corps, and got out in 1937. And after the CCs, my cousin had a bus and taxi company in Ronkonkoma, Long Island. I went out there and I went to work for him as a mechanic. In them days, you was a mechanic, you was a driver, you was a porter, you was anything at all, you know, and there was never an end of a day. So, but we survived, and I worked for him till, I worked for him until 1952, I think, and then I left and went to Fairchild. But in 1941, I married my wife, Catherine, and we had 3 girls. Well, our first daughter we lost in 1943. She had an enlarged heart, so, you know. But then we raised 3 other girls, and I worked in Fairchild. After I left my cousins, as a mechanic, I went in Fairchild. It was, we built air turbines and power turbines and things like that for the Army and Navy and everything. And in fact, one of the units was a cooling the air conditioner to cool the planes down on the flight decks of aircraft carriers. And then you see, then as my life went on, my girls grew up, and they all did good.
Okay, tell me about getting into the Army. What brought you to the Army?
Well, I was drafted in 1942, and right after Pearl Harbor, I was married already, and because I married in November of 41, so a buddy of mine and I didn't even tell my wife, but she went to work, and I took the car, and I went with my buddy down to Jamaica, Long Island. I was going to sign up in the Navy, and I got rejected. I had 2 teeth out of my mouth. A month later, you could have got in with no teeth. So basically, we had a full time, and then October of 42, I was drafted, and I went to Camp Campbell, Kentucky. And Camp Campbell, Kentucky was the first outfit in Camp Campbell. It was a new camp. Now it's Fort Campbell. And we spent 42, 43. We left and we went maneuvers down in Tennessee, through Nashville, Lebanon, and through that area.
Tell me what it was like when you got to Campbell. Was it all set up? Was it not? What was your experience?
It was very, very funny. At Camp Upton, Long Island, where we went to first induction after going to Center Street in New York and getting all our clearances to be in the service. and went to Camp Campbell out to Camp Upton in Long Island, and they asked if anybody wanted to go to the Air Force. So I stepped forward, and quite a few other guys stepped forward to go to the Air Force. I didn't care if I would have been a mechanic or somebody in a flight. I wouldn't make no difference. So I stepped forward. And then we was told to stay there, and we was stepped forward. And then later they took us out of a lineup, and you go to, we're going on a train, and we figure, well, that we're going to some air base someplace, you know. So you're going east, west, north, south, you know, the train is going all directions. We step off the train in the middle of the night, and we didn't know where we were. And step off, and we step in mud, red clay mud in Tennessee and Kentucky. And I said, what air base is this? He said, this ain't no air base. He said, this is Camp Campbell in Kentucky. I said, oh, good Lord. And I wound up as I was a mechanic anyhow, so I was a corporal in 12 weeks. Right after basic training, I got my corporal strike, which was in them days T5, and I was the battery. In the battery, there was three men in the section. There was staff sergeant, a T4, and a T5, and we had GMC trucks and jeeps and stuff like that, and we maintained them. We went maneuver areas, and after maneuver areas, we was ordered back and to go to Abilene, Texas.
What is the memory, your most poignant memory in Camp Campbell? If you were to think of one thing, is there anything that stands out besides the day you stepped out in the mud?
Well, a lot of things, there were a lot of little things, you know, that happened, you know, and in my barracks, the master sergeant of battalion maintenance shop, it was a big shop, he called down from upstairs and he said, Halter. Yes, Sarge. He says, I want you over to motor pool. And I says, what for? She says, he's a mechanic. I said, I ain't a mechanic. I said, I want to be a truck driver. He said, yeah. He said, we know more about you than you know about yourself. So he went over there, and they had a GMC set out on the floor, and the whole constant velocity joint in the front was all laying on the floor, all open, laying there. And he says, think you put that together? I said, well, you told me I'm a mechanic, so I said, I guess I could put it together. So I started, and I said to him, what grease do you want where? And he said, I knew, he said, right off the bat. So then another time he called me out again, and he says, he had a GMC sitting out there, and it looked kind of ragged and stuff, and he says, I want you to paint that. I said, I ain't no painter. Yeah, he said, I know. But I had worked a body shop, and in the bus company, we painted buses and everything else. So I painted it, but I pulled a fast one. I put a little shine in it. We didn't want no shine, you know. So now you got to paint it over again. It's not supposed to be shiny. It's supposed to be dull, olive drab. So that was fun. And then in our shop, I was training. I start training, and I start giving instructions on mechanics, the basics of mechanics, and what was under the hood of a vehicle, you know. And I started with the battery power. You got to have battery power first before you do anything else. And then you went through the system. You got the coil and the distributor and the spark plugs and how it worked and all that stuff, you know. And then I was training drivers. Actually, I should have had an officer or warrant officer or somebody to, you know, but they told me to do the training, so I trained the drivers. And then we went out to a swamp area, and lieutenant in charge, which at that time was Lieutenant Wilson, and he says, take your truck and go across to the swamp and go out on the hard ground on the other side. So I put it down in low gear and put it in front wheel drive and went across the swamp. And he thought that was pretty impressive, you know. So I said, well, I says, you know, you learn these things from different things, you know. So then I come back and he said, you sent the trucks one at a time through the swamp. So I told him exactly what to do. Put it in front wheel drive, put it in low range, and go across the swamp. And I said, don't change gears. Stay in the same gear. And I just, after about half of them went through, you know, and got about 25 guys. And one guy, I guess, thought he was a smarty. And I heard him go, zoom, zoom, and he went to change gears. As soon as he changed gears, flop, he stopped right there. So I trudged through the mud. I was mad at hell. So I walked out there and I said, get the hell out. I said, take that winch and take it out to the dead man out there and hook it onto it and pull your truck out. And Lieutenant says, you know, he says, I didn't know what to do. He says, good thing you told him. He said, because I would have done the same darn thing. He said, one way or the other. He said, but I don't. He said, I wouldn't have trudged through the mud though. So but there was comical things. There was sad things. There was hard times, and you know. But in this same period of time, I lost my first daughter, and
were you in the Army when she? Were you not home when she died?
No, I was in Campbell, and the Red Cross sent order that she was very sick. I knew she was sick, but I didn't know to what extent. So then they said that she was very sick, and my wife wanted to see if I could get home. So at that time, it's during combat and stuff like that, during wartime and stuff like that, it's tough to get out of a base when you're in basic, you know, to get out. So my captain, which was illegal to a certain extent, he gave me 3-day passes on one on top of the other. Had I been stopped by MPs or something like that, I'd have been in trouble, and so would he. You know, it would have been straightened out eventually. But anyhow, by the time I got to Chicago, I found out later my daughter had passed away. So then we had a burial service, and I was home, and then I said to my wife, I said, well, you ain't staying home. So I had my car parked in my mother-in-law's yard, and I went down and re-registered it, got it ready, and I said, you're coming with me. I said, she said, where are we going? I said, back to Campbell where I am. So she had to stay in a guest house for women. Then we took a room in town, and put, in them days, you have no idea what it is like, you know. The first night we rented a room, just a room in town in Clarksville. And we got into bed, and it went right down in the middle, you know. It was cracking on top of one. So it was funny, and it was tough, you know, just for different things. And then we went to maneuvers. From maneuvers, my wife worked in the largest dry cleaners and laundry in Nashville while I was in maneuvers. She had no driver's license, but she drove, because when we first got married, when we decided to get married, we was out on a date at night, and I asked her to marry me, and she says yes. So on the way home, I started home, and I went up the street, and I turned in towards her street, and I stopped the car, and she said, what are you doing? And I got out, walked around the car, opened the door, and said, move over. She said, I don't drive. I said, oh, yes, you do. And then she drove, and she never got a license until after the war was over in 1945.
Did she go to Camp Barkley with you?
Yeah,
Did she meet you?
yeah, she was down. I took her right back, right from maneuver areas. We got a furlough. I went back to New York for furlough, and then our orders was back to Barkley. So I went to Barkley, and I took her with me down there. And
Where'd y'all live here in Abilene?
now that's a question. That is a question. I forgot. My oldest daughter was born in April of 44, April 30th of 44, and when she was born in the Mather Memorial Hospital in Abilene, Texas. And when I came here the last visit here, I asked for the hospital. I went to some civic center or something, and they said they didn't have no record of the hospital. And I can't believe that, because a big hospital, it was like 3 stories high, I know that. And it was practically next door to a house that we was renting. And I mean, it wasn't renting a house, we were renting a room, and there was an elderly couple that owned it. And they seen that Catherine was pregnant, and she said, when your child is born, you can't stay here no more because we don't have children in the house. I said, well, you understand that, So that went on, and when she was born, and I can't remember where I went to live after that. A friend I knew, John Mee, he passed away in 1978, I think it was, and he became a doctor after the war. And I can't remember this year, but he was renting a house, and he had another couple in with him. And then when he found out that I didn't have a place, he says, well, I've been trying to think of his wife's name was Lori or something like that, and they says, you take the bedroom, the living room as the bedroom. All you have to do is buy a bed. So we bought a bed. that was it. No, then we got a furlough and went home. We went home to Long Island and came back, and on the morning got back to Abilene, and they says, it told everybody they have to ship their wives home, the guys that had their wives there with them, and they have to send your wives home, we're shipping overseas. So that's what I did. I sent her home, and then from then on it was combat time, and from there on.
Tell me your first memory of combat when you got to France.
Well, at first, going over, I was remember USS General Bliss, I think it was, and it was the admiral ship we was on, and it was a full convoy. And we weren't 200 mile out of New York, and German subs was stalking our convoy. And the destroyers went out and threw out ash cans, and then we went across, and we was only like 10 days across, and on the way over, they found out that our stuff that was sent over ahead of us, and the advance unit was bombed out on the beachheads of France. So we had to regroup. We went up to England, then got all new equipment, had to fix that all up, get that all ready, had to fix our trucks up and maintenance trucks and things like that and all that stuff. And then we went across the English Channel on LSTs to Le Havre, and from Le Havre in, and I can't remember the names of the towns and stuff like that. From then on, it was it was like a blur, big combats. When we had big pushes and stuff like the Colmar Pocket and Herlsheim and a few of the other places, they sort of stick in your memory a little bit, So
I'm going to scoot you back just a tad. When you got your equipment, what did you do as what was were you still called a mechanic?
I was still a mechanic.
Okay. What kind of shape was this equipment in when it came out? Came out of the boxes, crates? How did they
It
get
was
to
all,
you?
everything was like, it, well, first thing was rifles and guns and stuff like that was all covered in cosmoline. It's like a heavy, greasy tarry stuff, and you had to wash it in like kerosene and stuff, you know, to get and then clean it up and fix it up. And the trucks needed different things done to them as to clean it off. And we had and in them days, in World War II, it isn't like today. If you get a maintenance truck, they sent you cabinets for the sides and to put with drawers in them and stuff like that. We didn't get none of that. We had old pieces of lumber we'd taken, made cabinets, and put them in, you know, and then put our stuff in it. And we had a little cargo trailer for our air compressor for the tires and stuff like that. And you know, there was so much to do in days of combat. And like we got into, I specifically remember in the Colmar pocket, because it was really a real shootout. You know, I mean, there were a lot of artillery fire and stuff like that. And we went through the Colmar pocket. By the time we took over Colmar, when we finished it one day, our trucks we had 55 flat tires on the trucks, not counting the spares. And that was our job. So we got an old billet of barn or something, and we got into that. And we ran out of patching equipment to fix our tires. So we found a German garage, and we confiscated some German tire patching. It wasn't as good as our tire patching, but it worked for us, you know. So there was times that there was, as I say, and you know, I remember on the Christmas Eve and first Christmas over, and we was in the billet, and there was an outfit stringing wires all night long, stringing telephone wires and stuff like communications, and you know, and there was I don't know, a lot of little incidents, you know. Well, I got a R&R to Paris for 3 days. I went to Paris, and it's hard to, you don't remember anything of Paris. I mean, a little bit. I went to the Eiffel Tower. I got up there all as we could get up to the first platform. That was they didn't leave us go all the way to the top because that was all blocked off, you know. And then a few little things we got. In fact, I have some pictures of that yet, you know. And
Since you were mechanics and you were in charge of the equipment and stuff, was that a 24-hour-a-day job?
Never stops. It don't stop. It don't stop. On the Rhine push, when we were going up to the Rhine River, we're in the back of the column of our battery, and my staff sergeant was sitting, and I was driving. It was a funny thing because I always said Charlie Thompson was a West Virginia guy, and Charlie was a good guy and everything else. But I said to Sergeant Heskey, I said to him, I said, well, I said, you know, Sarge, I said, if you leave Charlie drive, I'm gonna walk. So I did 90% of the driving. If anybody else drove, it was my staff sergeant. He drove, and we're going up towards the Rhine, and we're in blackout. I mean, in blackout is nothing. You know, you don't see nothing. And I've always said that Germany and France were the darkest places I've ever seen in my life. It's like the inside of a black hat, you know. And I looked up and I see like sparks flying, you know, and up quite a ways on the column. I mean, we got like 25 trucks, gas trucks, ammunition trucks, food trucks, and jeeps, radio trucks, radio cars, and stuff like that. And I said, Sarge, I said, that looked like a flat tire up there burning, starting to burn. It didn't break out in a flame yet. He said, it sure looks like it to me. He said, you think you get up there? I can't understand what happened to what was the guy. I can't remember the guy behind him, whoever it was. I don't remember what. I knew the drivers, all the drivers, but I could not remember. I've trashed my head many a night and trying to think of who the heck it was. So I sneak up alongside, get up there, and I stop them. We stopped them guys, and I pull in behind the truck, and I made the other convoy continue on through. And I got there, and this tire was burning. I just ever broke out the flame, and then I look at it, and it's a gasoline truck with 300 cans of gas. Oh, God. Germans are right out there, we're coming to the Rhine, and I said, oh, crap. So we got the lugs off, and there was like a little lake or a pond or something right there, and we just rolled it off, tire, wheel, and all, right off and down into the water, and put new tire, new wheel, and stuff, new. And I said, Sarge, if that thing went off, we'd have been like a cannonball, and it would have been unbelievable. They'd have gave our position away, and just like that, But it's combat. It's combat. Then to go across the Rhine, they put pontoon bridges up. We lost a tank. I don't know if it was one or two tanks went right off. They moved them too far forward on the pontoon, and it upset it. And the hatches was closed. You go across, the hatch closed, so the crew was lost right there. I don't know if it was one or two tanks. I can't remember. It was too many things going on. You know what I mean? And we got across the Rhine, and our GIs was stacked up like cordwood, and the Germans had infiltrated in the dead bodies and took their boots off the guys, because our boots was a heck of a lot better. They wasn't as good as they have today, but they were better than the German hobnail shoes that they had. But it was a situation. That's all. It was wartime. That's all.
When you think of that would make me think of this question. What in your character got you through all those war times?
What got me through it?
Yeah. What about you? What helped you get through all of it?
My faith, I guess, and getting back to my wife, or something like that. I was Catholic, and I stuck to my religion.
Mm-hmm. So having a faith helped you get through there and to hold on to something. That's a real blessing. It's a blessing.
Sure.
That's okay. That's okay. When you think about, if you were to think about one person that you served with, is there one person that stands out?
Oh, sure. Quite a few, really. Well, like my sergeant, but it was fun. He was a good guy, but he was more of a loner. You know what I mean? After the war, I couldn't get in touch with him. I wrote to him, and it never got back to me. And even Sergeant Thompson, he was a West Virginia boy, and I wrote to him and tried to contact him for quite a few times, and never got through to him. And finally, my wife and I one time we took after I guess it was after I retired, and we were taking a trip, and I said, let's go up through West Virginia. I said, I got it. He lived in Bromwell, West Virginia, and I went up there, and I finally found his house. And I said, Charlie, and now he knew my wife. He knew Catherine. He knew her because he was in Abilene, and he knew that the baby was born, and they knew all about me, And I said, no wonder you never get out of here. I said, it's the last place God created, and they forgot to finish it. So it was, it was one of them things. And so he never came to any of the reunions, and neither did Sergeant Heskey. And it would have been nice to see them again, I thought, and but my one good buddy, real good buddy, really was James Stewart, and I don't know what happened to him after I left Europe. Well, actually, like when I got married, our Susan was born in Abilene. My wife was with me, and it was just, I was more back and forth with my wife instead of going to town with him and stuff like that. It was but he was a good buddy, a real good buddy, and there was so many, even some of the truck drivers, and Harry Woodward, he lives in Arizona now, and gee whiskers, I can't. So many, they were. Everybody was buddy. I mean, you was a buddy to everybody, really. It's,
Yeah. Tell me about the 494th,
495th.
5th. I was thinking that one. 495th. Tell me about what happened at Herlesheim with you. Were y'all there?
Yeah, we went. There was, but I can't remember. See, with a service battery, a service battery is. We supply A, B, and C, and headquarters battery with everything they need, anything and everything they need. At one time in Germany, our trucks was going back 200 miles for gasoline and ammunition and food. That's a long way to run. And it's something that them trucks had to be. They must have been perfect. They were GMCs, and they really did the job for us. Or to tell you the truth, in fact, I had opened all the governors up myself. But personally, I opened all of the governors. They were wide open.
Tell me about a governor. For people who see this in a while.
A
Yes.
governor on it's a plate underneath the carburetor. And all it does is it only feeds so much gas, and so much gas will go in. And that's if it's set for 30 miles an hour, it starts 30 miles an hour, and that's as fast as you'll go. And I opened them. Now them GMCs would run fully loaded. That's on the Audubon. We'd run 70, 75 miles an hour. And the Jeep, you couldn't get the Jeep to go over 70 or 72 miles an hour. And after we was in combat a while, and we was running on the guys was running back on the Audubon most of the way if there was Audubon going to the depot where they had to run to. And Lieutenant Wilson came back and he said to me, because they always came to me. I don't know why they come to me. Honest to God, I really don't know why. And he says to me, he says, can you do anything? Is my governor open on the Jeep? I said, it's open as far as we go, Lieutenant. He said, well, the trucks are, the GMCs are running away from me. I said, well, you're the lieutenant. If you can't control them, then you're in trouble. But it was, as I say, every day was an experience. Some guys that were knowledgeable and had the time and what's that called? That made diaries and stuff like that. I admire them. I think that was a good feature. You know what I mean? Because you remember things. I got mad after the war was over. I had an aluminum mess kit and very few of them were aluminum, but I had aluminum one. And I had a metal stenciler, you know, to stencil, and I stenciled every town, every village we went through on my mess cup. And when I got to New York, getting out of service, I wanted my mess kit. And this guy, I really, you know, I mean, he was just a wise guy, you know, or something. And it would be no deal to let me keep that mess cup, but, you know, he wouldn't let me keep it. And I said, you know, I said, no, you know, I rode every town, practically every town I was into, you know. We went up through, actually we ended up in Innsbruck, in Austria, we were the 12th Armored Division, I think, on the driving to Innsbruck into Austria. I think the big capture was about 70,000 Germans that we captured. So we had you know, but as far as, I can't remember, you know, a lot of details because we're in the back of the column, and anything that happened to one of our trucks, a flat tire or whatever, we'd stop and the rest of the convoy would go on.
Tell me, how did you keep equipment? Was it a communication thing, or did they just send whatever and you went and got back? How did they keep all this thing supplied?
Together. I don't really know how it was all done, but like when we stopped at night, if the guys had a trouble with a truck, they'd locate us because they knew where we were. We'd get into between some buildings or an old farm or off to some field someplace under some trees or something, you know, and they'd find out where you were, and then they'd get to us, and if there was something that their truck needed, we had it, and we'd take care of it regardless if it took all night. One night, one of our trucks, I don't know what happened, but they come down a dirt road, dirt road, and he made a turn and he went off the side of the road, and he let the steering wheel go, and the wheel spun around like, you know, fast, and it sheared off the steering mechanism underneath the front fender on the left side. It sheared the splines where it was splined onto a spindle. You know, and this is at night. The Germans are like a couple thousand yards away, and they wanted this truck back. You know, at that time, Lieutenant Wilson was in charge of that descent, and he says, "We got to get that truck back." And they had got it into a barn. So here you're underneath at night, pulling this thing off. Then we had to get that spindle off, and then get it back into position where you could still steer it. Well, I don't know how we did it. We did it, and it was just, and we was afraid to even start the engine, you know, a noise. So when we got ready, the Jeep that brought us out there was way up the road. He stayed away up the road. So when we got ready to leave, we decided when we was going to do it, and this is going to be quick. We had to back out of this garage, then get back on the road. Well, boy, you want to see us go in a hurry. But that was just a crazy incident. Just happened, and it.
Did you have cranes? How did you get these trucks up?
That was all. That's all covered with battalion maintenance. Battalion maintenance had tank recovery vehicles. They could practically pick up the front of a tank. And, you know, it was unbelievable the power they had, you know. And they had two of them. Jerry Mullen drove one, and Alec, boy, oh boy. Alex Sanic drove the other one. And, Jerry is dead now. He died here a few years back. Alec is still alive. He lives up in, can't remember what city, what town he lives in. But they were good drivers for battalion maintenance. But the battalion maintenance shop was a good shop. They were captured. Captain Dunau was in charge of battalion maintenance, and there was himself and I think eight other guys were captured, and we recaptured them. They was in a camp. They were captured by the Germans, and they was in a camp, and like 3 months later, we captured the area. How it ever happened? The 12th, the 5th, 495th captured that unit and got them back. And you would not believe, in 3 months' time, Captain Dunau was a 6'2" real man. And he was a stick. And they told us stories that they pushed pigs out of a pig trough to get this part of the potato peels or scraps to eat. And the Germans took their boots off, took their overcoats off them and everything. So, you know,
Wow. Where was this? Was this in Germany?
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, all of it was in Germany. France, I don't remember much combat in France. When we first went into Le Havre, and then, you know, the first towns, I can't even remember the names of the towns, you know. We were moving so fast, you know, and the funny part was when we landed, you know, when we landed LST, and we pulled in, and all right, we wasn't on the first part of the invasion, you know. We was in October, you know, and the invasion was in June, and they dropped the LSD doors open, and it was funny. I looked out, and the way they knew what they was doing when they loaded them, you know. The tanks was out in front. Our tanks was at the M1 tank with the 105 Howisters. We were artillery outfit, so we were 105 Howisters. And they dropped the doors, and you see this wall of dirt, you know. But the tanks went out, and boom, boom, they cut a road right up, and then the GMCs come on, and right on up they go, and then the Jeeps was behind. And
how many pieces of equipment fit on those STP?
LSDs?
LSDs, I mean.
Well, can I remember? I think we had six of the 105 Howisters up in front. Now, there was 3 abreast. There's 3 across. And in the middle of the canal it was unbearable. We sat out there for a day and a half or 2 days, I don't know, and we bounced around, and then it was terrible. And one of the tanks broke loose. When the one broke loose, he took the one out the other side, broke the chains on that one, and then went the other way and took the chains out on that side. So you got 3 tanks loose. Now you got to get them back in position, and we're bouncing around. So they had to start them up, then position them.
What does start up mean?
Huh?
What does that mean? Start them up?
Start the engine up.
Start them up. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. To maneuver them back in position. So they got them back in position, rechained them, and They did a good job. Otherwise, they went right out through the bulkhead. They'd have went right out in a deep six.
So you had the tanks, and then were the GMCs behind that, or
Yeah,
were they all?
GMCs were behind the tanks.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and so there must. I don't really remember how many trucks there were, but I know on the time that we was there, we slept on top of the canvas on the trucks. We crawled up on top of the tarpaulins and slept on in between the bows, you know. So, but I don't remember how many GMCs or how many other
Do you know
small.
about how many men were on those with you?
No, I don't really know, but I know we got to know the crew, and it was a British crew, and it was October, Thanksgiving was coming up, so we got to know them as my sergeant and us, and we talking to them, you know. So when we got ready to getting unloaded, he had a canned turkey. He said, I don't know if you're going to get any turkey for Thanksgiving, but here you have this can of turkey. So we did have that later, but it was something that the British crew, they said, well, we don't know what, you know, because we got to, you know, you're talking and you did different things, you're asking them questions about their life and what they did, you know, and it was.
When you look back through your times in the 12th Armored Division, was there ever a time what was the most fearful time? When did you come the closest to feeling that danger for yourself?
Really, sometimes you don't know. I don't think that you thought really of that so much. You know, it's a funny thing of combat life. It's something different, you know. It's not like anything else you ever do in your life, you know. The only thing I know was, as I said, it was dark. It was dark. And I think the one time that we I can't even remember the name of the town, but we found out later. We was in a town and we was building it in there, and I can't remember the name of the town. I'm trying to think of it, and I can't think of it. Anyhow, everybody was on guard duty. Everybody was guard duty. There was no question about it. And because we was completely under fire. The German 88s were firing in on us, and finally they found out where the observer was coming from, and it was coming from a church steeple in the middle of the town. And he was giving the Germans our positions from what he could see. And it was getting a little bit touch and go. Now, once they found that out, they just turned all guns right to the church steeple and took it out. But then it was every man was carrying ammunition. Everybody, bakers, cooks, everybody. So that's the old story, you know. It was combat, and that was, but that was about the closest one. One time we was after the Rhine crossing, we was on the roadway, and there was somebody was giving directions to the Germans where we were to, and one of our GMCs got hit right in the motor compartment. And amazing, the driver, boy, I know his name, I know it just like that, but I can't think of it right now at this minute. And the shrapnel cut the gun racks on the side, cut them practically off alongside of the driver and the assistant driver. And the driver got hit in the leg. He got a wound. And he's sitting there and there's no motor. It's gone. So, and we was like by an old railroad station or a trolley station or whatever it was, and they got him into that, and they got the medics and took care of him, you know. And but boy, I know the guy so well, and just I'll have to look at my magazine when I go home. I got to refresh my own memory a lot of times of different things, you know. I just you lose it for a certain period of time, you know. But basically, that was most of it, you know. And actually from there, that's after he got hit, we wanted to find out who was given. Okay, so myself and Sergeant Heskey and a few of us grabbed our rifles and we climbed up the hill and then laid on our bellies and crawled up the crest of the hill, the top of the hill, and we looked down in a sort of a valley, and there was a group of Germans down in there. And so I grabbed my rifle and I got it up, and I'm gonna blow somebody away. Somebody hit one of my trucks and it's gone. And the first thing you know, a shot went right next to my shoulder. Honest, it was so close. It was unbelievable. I shook for a minute, you know, and that's when I took my rifle up and Lieutenant Wilson grabbed my boot and pulled back, and he says, "Don't shoot him." He said, "We want information." I said, "Lieutenant, he shot at me." So that's when I got my Luger. I went down and took them and asked him if he had any weapon. Nick. He said, "No, he had a nine. Yeah." I opened his jacket and I took the Luger, and I had the Luger. but I not that I wanted to kill anybody. I mean, you know,
It's war.
when you look through the sights and you look and you think a dozen times, a million times over, do I want to do this? Do I want to do this? You know, until it comes right down to the end where you have to, and that's I think most guys did. I mean, they just didn't do arbitrarily, just do it. I don't think because I don't. My mind would not let me unless I was shot at, and my life was in jeopardy. Then I have to take care of me.
We're about through with our tape, but I have a question that I ask everybody. If someone were to get this tape in 50 years and was sitting looking and listening to this, what would you want them to know, or about the war, or about yourself?
I would just like to let anybody know that I think we did a good job for the job we had to do. We were pressed into a position where we had to do something, and we're protecting our flag.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for spending it and sharing your heart with me, and sharing your heart with the people that will be seeing this later.
Right. I don't do this often.
Yeah. Well, this is a story that's very important, and you're our hero, and we appreciate all you did.
Oh, hey.
And I appreciate your memory.
It was something that you have to understand. I lived a long time, and I remember the day that Lindbergh flew across the Atlantic. I was 10 years old. And when it comes right down to it, this is my flag. Nobody touches it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.